Okay.
Makes me wake up from bed. That thing.
Nice. Yeah. So like we are here again. Like I'm Sue again from the live stream for the live stream, and I am the host of ShiftSet podcast by Sustainable Transformation Hub, which I founded also at the T Berlin like some years ago. But now we are a hub for the city with 11 innovation clusters, and I am today at the Creative Progressive Festival, and I'm sitting with Jonas Shore, and I'm super happy that like you found the time like to join, and to share maybe like a bit your personal story, how you built all of this. I think it's also very inspiring, and yeah, so maybe I would just like start like, who are you, and maybe what does it mean also impact for you since you founded the Urban Impact? So maybe you can give us a bit more insights.
Nice, thanks so much. Thanks so much, Sue. And yeah, it's great to also be here at the Creative Bureaucracy Festival with you. We have really nice weather. And so, yeah, my name is Jonas. I'm born and bred Berliner. Started business and then very early got into this whole city topic. And basically coming also from communications and like how do you get people to work well together, and then realized very quickly after getting into this the city business, like, hey, it's all about communication, it's about aligning people, it's about if you want to, we talk about these wicked problems, these really tough problems, and usually the reason why they are wicked is there isn't a single person, a single organization that can solve them, right? So it requires like new types of alliances, and it requires for everyone to move a little bit outside their comfort zone. And so what we have found, and I can say a few more words about Urban Impact itself in a moment, but what we have found and what intrigues me with this in this work is actually getting people outside their comfort zone to take a risk, a calculated risk, but also a lot based on trust and people, to do really cool shit. And that really hacks the system in a way. And I think that also transfers well to the spirit of the Creative Bureaucracy Festival here.
I mean, it's super nice because now, like you said, like hack the system and so on, like wicked problems, wicked challenges. So I think this is also what maybe like what I got it from you. I think this was like in the Falling Walls. I think some years ago. I think you came. Where was this? In the Hanover? Yeah, in the water. In the water. Yeah, I was like, basically, I was like, now that time, like I was student, like I was chosen for this like water like challenge thing of Falling Walls Foundation, and it was like super nice because I think there was like this, yeah, impact, like hacking and so on. And then like now I'm organizing my own hackathon, so this is like this is like now I'm not that like maybe student anymore, but maybe that's why I wanted to say like also maybe you have like an influence role, and then how maybe you can bring like this more like how you founded the Urban Impact. So what was like your, okay, now I want to change this, now this is like the problem in this, I want to hack the system, so this is the way maybe you hack the system, right?
Yeah, I mean, basically, for 6 years now, I'm running a company called Urban Impact. We're like let's say, a really specialized advisory company, but really we focus on ecosystem connecting, and not just here in Berlin. We are from Berlin. We have a headquartered here. We also have an office in Barcelona. But we work like across Europe and also with partners from around the world internationally. And basically the idea, so Urban and Impact, kind of the name tells the story already. It's all about cities and how do we accelerate the transition to future-proofing cities. And that might be, tackling climate change, that might be how do we leverage AI, that might be how do we rethink the public commons in cities, right? And all the multiple crises that we're facing, and they kind of come together in the cities. And at the same time, if you look at cities, right, about like 99% of the cities that we all know on an everyday basis, they're more than 100 years old, right? So technology is changing so rapidly, but our systems we are locked in, they're not changing that quickly. If you plan infrastructure, as you know, in a city, you're talking 20, 30, 40 years time horizons, new districts we are trying to do, especially the Zukunftsorte, the future sites we just before talked about this. These are long-term projects. At the same time, there is short-term politics, and there is the new technology, and there are new laws, and there's like, so much energy, there's capital flowing. How do we align that in an ideal way, that we are not constantly like running in circles, reinventing the wheel between cities also? And how do you make that knowledge, put it in new ways of working together to the best setup, so that you can unlock much larger impact, right? And that's the second part of our name and our story is we believe that we have all the tech we need. We believe we have all the money in the world that we need. It's just a coordination failure. And that's why we focus on ecosystems of public, private, of civic. We look at cities and we try to find cities that are very similar when it comes to governance and get them to work together as peers. And we do that on the European level with the European Mission Cities. We do it working for many years here in Berlin. I was a speaker also of Berlin Smart City Network. It's been a long journey of this cultural transformation in those ecosystems. So we try to play a role here, and we think that's actually what's needed to move from individual pilots, and we have this term like death by pilot. And everywhere we are reinventing the wheel. How do we get to actually like a structured, bankable portfolio approach to innovation in cities to really scale things rapidly up, right? Because actually, if you look at innovation budgets in Berlin, we think like, oh, well, maybe the city is spending $1 million here, $1 million there. But if you look at the overall budget of the city has a budget of 33 billion every year, right? So how do we mainstream impact by mainstreaming from getting out of the innovation bubble and getting it into the day-to-day work?
I think this is like a very important point, like how to make also impact visible and tangible, that everybody understands that is actually we need to like change something. Maybe like that's why I come to this like question. So when you change the cities, maybe what is like the biggest like this leverage points you see, since like you work in different cities, and if you compare Berlin to the other cities, like what are the points also maybe from your experience you can tell?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, it's a lot you're asking, but basically some of the leverage points, right? I mean, one is, I would say, finance. If we look around, there's some really good examples, and there's even good examples in Berlin, right? So they're like really innovative think tanks, like for instance, the Competence Center for Water, right? That came out of like kind of like getting the water utility back to the city, and that was like then created. We have a technology foundation, TSB, who has kind of like a like a public capital that's actually making returns on the and out of the interest also subsidizing some of the work of this foundation. So these kind of evergreen models can really be transformative for cities, and the work of the IBB is really, so the Investment Bank of Berlin, they're really good examples of this. But if we look internationally, there are even so many other cool examples. So we don't, in other words, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to take the good things and figure out how do they fit into what we already have. The other thing that where we see a huge leverage point is, one side is what do the different cities need to transform? The other thing is what's out there. And so one of the missions that we have is actually do the homework of scouting all this innovation in cities, all these startups that are popping up all across Europe and even beyond every year. And to our estimates, there's around 1,000 new urban tech smart city startups every year in Europe alone being created. Now, show me one city that actually does the scouting work, right? Because it's not part of a city's role. The administration they're administering is not to know all the VCs in the Silicon Valley and be at like Web Summit or be in all of those accelerator programs, right? And scout what's out there. that the city could actually leverage to level up and get to their own city targets much quicker, cheaper as well, right? And speed the climate transition up. So that's a little bit a role that we also play, bringing that knowledge, that foresight of what's happening in the startup world, just bring that and putting that into the hands of the decision makers that actually shape our cities.
I think this is also like a very important point, like regarding to like now startup innovations, because now it's since also really a lot of funding is like now moving also maybe to that field. So do you think like we like when you compare like with other cities, like are we late in Berlin? Like what is like this maybe now like a lot of startups are coming, but I had a feeling like sometimes we had this like comparison with Munich and so on, like, you know. So I felt sometimes like as part of like TU Berlin, I felt sometimes like maybe would it be different like if I would be in another city, you know? And sometimes I have this feeling like I mean I could have done so many things here. I think like so many projects also in the government, but now I have like sometimes like have like feeling of okay, are we late to innovate somehow and like and can we accelerate it really maybe now in a way that we get on the pace like others, and is it like sustainable from the other side, and is it also maybe from the other side like that, I mean, yeah, are we on this point, or yeah, what's your feeling like?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, the case of Berlin, because on the one hand, when it comes to the startup scene in Germany, right, it was started here, right, and it's a recent thing. It started the very first startups, accelerators, Rocket Internet, right. That's been 20 years, right. And if you look at Silicon Valley or something, they've had 70 years of ecosystem building. We've had now 20 years. So at this point, though, we are also one of the top three investment and startup hubs in Europe, on the continent. So we shouldn't complain, right? We are the front runners. A lot of people are looking to our startup scene. We have a lot of DAX companies, like you think, well, HelloFresh no more, but Delivery Hero and so on, like a few that made it really big, that actually created around 100,000 jobs in this city just in the last 10, 15 years, right? So it's huge success. It's an industry that Berlin didn't have after reunification, right, after the Cold War. And suddenly we have an innovation industry, a startup industry in all sorts of sectors. So I think that's great. If you look at the venture capital world, almost every major, even US fund, all of the major ones, we have so many venture funds now headquartered here or like with an office here in Berlin. It's also incredible. And we're still the number one, I think, in investments when it comes to Germany, right? So all of that is good. At the same time, there are specialties of those innovation hubs, right? So if you want to do manufacturing base and, you want to be close to, the OEMs of like BMW or Porsche or whatever, right? Or you need to work with heavy industry or other places like green, especially climate tech, deep tech innovation, that can happen in other places, perhaps even better, where you have those clusters, those industrial clusters. And so we have some, right? We have a Siemens Energy here, so world leader of energy production. But then other clusters, many are spread out across Europe and a lot in Munich and so on. So, right, there will always be that competition. I think it's actually very healthy. But I think we see on the one hand, Berlin just cannot rest on its laurels. And what other cities do better, I think, where we can learn from them, is getting the business side really work much more in tandem, hand in hand with the public side. Sometimes I think here we're trying too hard to do everything from the public, and then the whole startup scene formed though by never talking to the public side. So probably that's a stiff thesis, but you could argue there wouldn't be a startup world in Berlin if you would have too early involved the city, right? So we hope to change that. That's part of our mission, is be a bridge to make sure we can punch above our weight and really bring all the good stuff that the city has, that the Zukunftsorte, that's the demand side also, but also bring it with the tenacity and the speed and so on of VCs, of impact VCs, of all of those great founders, male, female, everything, and really make this flywheel work as an ecosystem. And there we can still become much better, even though we are already great,
I think this is also what I feel. I think we are like now in this really in this moving towards like and really having this good ecosystem. And so maybe like to finish like this conversation, so what I understand, maybe this is my own interpretation, but like when we are now in 2045, you know, so we go to the future, and then would you think that yeah, actually like we reached this point like where we want to go like as Berlin? So this is like what I understand from you. You are like optimist, right? That's like you're working regarding also with what you're doing. So maybe we reach our like climate neutral goals, or like what do you think about this?
Um, no, absolutely. I think we will get there. The question is when
Okay.
and how fast. So, right, if you look again, it depends on your perspective. If you look um, at e-government, right, something that a lot of European countries and cities and so on outside of Germany have figured out maybe 10, 20 years before us and have implemented, it's become a normal thing. We're still struggling with that, right? Getting the Digitale Akte and getting all of those processes in the public sector. We are just 10, 20 years late, and probably it will still take a while because it's a cultural change, it's a generational shift, it's a technology stuff. There was a lot of like lack of public investment in IT infrastructure in Berlin for almost a decade in the early 2000s and so on. There's many reasons why this is. There are historic reasons of reunification and so on and so forth. If you look at other things like impact, there's probably no better place in the world where we have such a vibrant impact ecosystem as in Berlin. It just that almost it doesn't exist outside this agglomeration, right? I mean, a lot of the crypto stuff, decentralized, anarchic, like other new radical concepts about society, they happen also in Berlin because, well, this was a divided city, and you had a capitalist system and you had a socialist system, and you had a breadth of thought and thinking, and this is still, you know, this fertile ground for new ideas, why people still come here, you know, and you have everything, right? And it's fine. It is the freedom that you find in very few other places. But also, I think we just need to be careful that we stay pragmatic and just solve people's everyday problems. So if we are just in this innovation bubble, but nobody can get right the Bürgeramttermin or, you know, this kind of stuff, the basic stuff in the city, construction sites, right? Like I mentioned, exactly. So we have an office in Barcelona. You know, if you see anyone working there on the street, there's construction site opens. You see people day and night working, almost like in China. And I lived in China. And then kind of like a couple days later, or 1 or 2 or 3 weeks later, the bridge has been extended twice its size, right? And here we are 5 years, you know, and it's still the same thing, and you never see people working, right? So this needs to change. Like these really stupid things, and they are wasting public money, and they get people frustrated. So let's just make sure when we do the innovation stuff, let's fix the everyday projects, really focus on this. Then people see the impact. Then the city will become also more attractive. And we do have visions. We have a vision to bring a World Expo to Berlin. The mayor last weekend said, hey, yes, he's finally supporting it. And he wants to get this with Brandenburg together. And we might be the perfect place, you know, to welcome the world. And 10 years from now, maybe not, 2045, maybe even 2035, and bring the World Expo. And there is the whole business community is pushing this. The whole civil, like a lot of the civil community is pushing this. And I'm also part of this, the Berlin Global Goals Verein that is initiating this and supporting this as well, because it would give us a big goal to work towards, almost like a mission. And that will hopefully speed things up, and hopefully, like, you know, with like a internationale Bauausstellung, potentially Olympia, whatever, real, and 800 years of Berlin anniversary coming up also in the 30s, 2030s, we can actually have a wonderful decade ahead of us. And I will end with that, because I think I think I am very optimistic, but we need to get our shit together.
Exactly. But yeah, I think like this is a very good ending, and yeah, thank you so much, like also for your time. And yeah, so I would say like here also, yeah, follow us, like follow Urban Impact, follow like Sustainable Transformation Hub, And yeah, see you soon, live streamers, and also the podcasters. Bye bye. Nice. Cool. Ja, nice. Das ist das mit den Global Goals. Also ich will das auf jeden Fall mehr so ein bisschen mehr connecten.
Ja.
Also, weil das ist direkt, was wir machen, ist Global Goals. Genau, also mit dem SDGs und so. Genau. Aber das ist jetzt so eine Verein, oder wie?
Das ist ein Verein, genau, da kannst du für 60 Euro Jahresmitgliedschaft, kannst du auch die Vision, dass die Expo herkommt, mit unterstützen.
Ah, okay.
Ich habe heute gerade, also jetzt ist die heiße Phase, jetzt muss man, weil jetzt auch wieder Wahlkampf
Bisschen
ist,
Push, ja.
und jetzt muss man einfach noch möglichst die unterstützen, dass das jetzt dieses Konzept eingereicht wird. Das muss dann der März einreichen in Paris bis
Ja.
Ende des Jahres, aber Berlin muss sich mit Brandenburg jetzt erstmal, wie gesagt, committen. Alle sind dabei, alle wollen das und das wäre richtig geil für die Stadt. Dann geht hier auch wieder was.
Ja, super. Wollen wir eine Selfie machen?